My name is Daniel Westbrook, and today we're going to install a historic style of trim on these modern windows in the remodel we're doing to match the rest of the home. Okay, so in this project we had a lot of windows like this that we needed to do, but on this window we identified that there was quite a bow in the wall, so all of the windows themselves weren't lined up with each other. I noticed, eyeballing it from the end, that I have a bow. This piece has to be consistent and it's got to be straight. So I notice right here I've got a bow in it, and then it's back to touching the string again. I'm going to have to push this end right where I want it and just tack it. Okay, so that's looking really consistent. And I'm just putting these nails in here as a kind of a temporary holding. Okay, now that this edge is straight all the way down, now I can confidently scribe the windows. I'm going to start down on that end. Okay, so the next step is to identify the widest gap, which I've identified as being right here, and I simply just cut a shim to that size of that gap that I can put my pencil against, and I use this same shim to scribe all the way down. So I'm going to start right here. This will give me exactly what I need to do. Now, the next step is to remove this piece, go to the saw table, cut all of these, and reinstall it. Okay, so the next step is to cut our lines, but I want to point out something. When we had this temporarily set against the wall, it was nice and straight. Had a little spring in it, and you notice it's got a little bit of a bow in it right now. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that when we're using our track saw, which is a straight edge cut, rather than just freehanding it, we're going to have to make sure that this is secured so that it's straight. It's not very much, actually, but I just want to point out that it's important to remember what your wood is doing after you've secured it straight. And that's it. And this should be ready to install. Okay, so now that we've finished our cuts, everything is nice and straight in this direction. What I want to do now is make sure I don't get this sort of warbly on top. So I've got a spacer, I've got my string line that I've already set up. And what I'm doing with my spacer is I'm checking to see actually that works out really good. So I'm just kind of cutting my shims, making sure I'm getting this set in the right spot with my line. Oh, that's pretty good. So that when you're looking down the edge of this, we don't end up with a hump anywhere or anything like that. I'm just going to go ahead and throw this in. See how nice and tight that is there? And I want to point out, see this joint all the way along here, how nice and tight that is? All that work makes that tight. So if this was a stain grade material, you really have to pay attention to doing it right. This is a paint grade, so it doesn't have to be perfect. One of the most important factors on this is the divider trim that we had to make. And I want to show you what we needed to do. So we've identified the size of the trim that we need for the dividers in the windows. I don't know if the camera can follow me, but I've identified what we need for our divider pieces. Now this is a trim with a profile, so what we essentially need to do is take two full pieces of trim and rip them down to make them the right size. What that does, here's two pieces I've ripped down I haven't glued up yet. Yeah, so that gives us the size that we need for this window. Here's a couple of pieces that have already been glued up, and I want to point something out though, is that you see this little profile that's still standing proud in the middle of these two? Well, that has to be planed or sanded off. Now I like to use a sander because on the back side I've got glue, and then I just take a belt sander and grind down this to a nice smooth surface. And then on my final product, I identify what's going to be the top, and I'll cut it something like this. Okay, so I have two angles because the top piece in our window is going to be a continuous piece like that, and this, the divider piece, will come up and fit into it like so, maintaining this profile edge. Okay, so now I got the sill in. We have all of our parts and pieces made, and now it's time to do installation. So what I've done is I set up a string line at the top, because I noticed that a lot of these windows they kind of don't line up exactly, so we want to make sure that our top headpiece is straight, and that our reveal with our extension jambs also looks straight. So I've set up a string line that matches where my extension jamb is going to go, which is essentially right there. And so what we're going to do is simply go all the way down and hash mark out exactly where we want the bottom edge of our trim. We're going to do that, and that tells us exactly where we can put our head pieces. And then it also tells us exactly the height of each piece all the way down in case it's a little bit different. And so it's just a matter of installing all of that next. Okay, so I want to talk about where we're at now that we've got most of this trim installed on this bank of windows here. I want to point out that we haven't actually installed the top piece yet. We've just temporarily put it in so that we can mark where our center pieces are going to go here. And you can see that we've installed our extension jambs. And remember, we had that string line above. This is all nice and straight at the top. And I want to sort of point out what we're going to do next is this is just temporarily installed. We'll take it off so that I can cut my joints in here so that I can get these fitted. When making the cut at the top of the divider trim, it's really important to identify the two flat spots of the trim where they meet together so that that can be sanded nice and smooth. So now we're just going to install the head piece, and then we're going to fit our side pieces. Okay, so in this project we had a lot of windows like this that we needed to do. But on this window we identified that there was quite a bow in the wall. So all of the windows themselves weren't lined up with each other. So we had to modify our window sill in order to make it fit so that it looks good and is straight on the outside corner. I know it takes a little bit of extra work to do a traditional style of trim like this, but the results are well worth it. My name is Daniel Westbrook. We'll talk to you soon.